I'll be speaking with Melinda Tuhus. She is a journalist and climate activist who wrote a piece recently for the New Haven Independent called "Why We Rocked for Climate Justice." And in it, she talked about what she did and the trial that occurred in Wilmington, Delaware. Good morning.
Good morning, Stan.
So let's start at the beginning. Why did you go to Wilmington and what did you do there?
So what we did in Wilmington was the culmination of a week-long walk that we did from Scranton, which was Biden's birthplace, to Wilmington, which has been his longtime home. We didn't walk all the way, I have to say. That's a pretty long walk. We actually prioritized meeting with people along the way who were fighting different fossil fuel and other environmentally destructive projects. So we ended up doing a little more driving than we thought we were going to do, but those meetings were really valuable. So we got to Wilmington, and which is like corporate America. Delaware is known for being the headquarters of many, many corporations because of their advantageous tax structure. Mm-hmm. So one of the big buildings there is the JP Morgan Chase credit card headquarters. The main headquarters is in New York, but this was a very imposing building. And so what we did was carry rocking chairs. 15 of us sat right next to each other along, blocking the two double doors to the entrance. And we sat there for a while. Actually, to be totally honest, I wasn't sitting there then. I was doing some other stuff out, a little further back from the building. But the police came, and after a while, they declined to arrest people. They said it was our First Amendment right to gather there, even though it was clearly private property. And I guess Chase didn't want to have a scene there. So after a while, folks took their rocking chairs and went into the street. And that's when I grabbed a rocking chair and sat in the street with them.
Why did you pick Chase?
We picked Chase because Chase is by far the biggest investor globally in fossil fuel projects. There's a report, I don't know if it comes out every year. There's a 2020 report and a 2021 report. The 2020 report was called Banking on Climate. No, I forgot the exact name. Banking on Climate Change. And the 2021 report is called Banking on Climate Chaos. So there's very detailed information about banks' investments in different sectors, like pipelines, like Arctic drilling, like mountaintop removal coal mining. And overall, Chase is by far the number one investor, multiple $316 billion.
Wow, $316 billion. That's a lot of change.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So you were talking that you moved, or the people moved the rocking chairs to the street. Why did you pick rocking chairs as a?
Because we're elders.
Uh-huh.
It actually came up just organically while we were on our walk, and we gathered rocking chairs from various places. We had a guy with us who was just amazing, and he actually didn't walk. He drove his car with pulling the porta potty behind, and he had extra room on the little platform. And as we were going through Pennsylvania, he was finding places to get rocking chairs. It was very funny. Some of them were actually beautiful pieces of furniture too. So anyway, that's what we did.
So you're in the street with the rocking chairs. Was there also a banner involved?
Oh, man. Yeah, we had several banners. The biggest banner said Biden and Chase. Now you're going to make me, I can't remember exactly what it said. It just said, I think, divest from fossil fuels. And
I think we can screen share and find it. Let me see if I can do that without. Um, yeah, there it is. Biden be bold. Is that the?
That's the one. Yeah. Biden and Chase, be bold. Oh, there's stop. It's a little hard to read in yellow letters going down the left side. Biden be bold. Stop. Chase, stop all oil and gas financing. So they were standing. There's a 6-foot pedestal there, and above them is a huge eagle with outspread wings that's standing in front of the building.
And that's where they were standing. Okay, I'm going to stop that share. All right, here we are. So, so people got arrested?
Yeah, the police kept asking us, to please move because, we could be preventing somebody from getting to the hospital or, some emergency. And there were two responses to that. One is that there was a left turn lane, and when anybody sat in their rocking chair in that lane, they were arrested immediately. So people couldn't go straight, motorists couldn't go straight, but they could turn left, which, was a slight inconvenience. And they also said, this, you could be creating an emergency for someone. So one of the people who was sitting with us, one of the grandparents, said, this was June 28th. She said, it's 108 degrees today in Seattle, where my 3-year-old granddaughter lives. And that's 30 degrees above normal. So, and we know that 600 people died from the multi-day, incredible heat in British Columbia and Oregon and Washington, and 1 billion sea creatures died. So, that was her response.
Mm.
What we're doing is not quite as drastic as what's already happening and what we're trying to prevent.
Did they arrest the people standing on the pedestal also?
Yes.
They did. Okay. All right. So that was in what date?
June 28th.
So that's at the end of June. And then the trial was on the 12th of November. So it was very recent in Delaware.
In Wilmington, right.
Okay, so talk about the trial.
Well, first I want to say the trial was originally scheduled for September 29th. And so around that trial date, we actually organized some amazing events. We did a walk from Chase Bank to Biden's house on the day before the trial, and with many young people who joined along the way. We went to different high schools, and some teachers and a lot of students joined us. We had drummers. It was really exciting. And then the next morning, before the trial was supposed to happen, we gathered outside the courthouse, and we held a People's Climate Tribunal. And we had a couple people, well, several people testified in person, including a doctor who talked about the health impacts from climate change. And I had done, because he couldn't be there in person, I had done a Zoom interview with in advance with Tony Ingraffia, who is an engineer and on the faculty. He's emeritus on the faculty at Cornell University, and he's one of the world experts on methane. So we did an interview with him, and we played it in front of the courthouse, and it was very effective, actually. So anyway, we didn't have court that day, so then we had to go back for court. So what was your question?
So November 12th was the trial. So describe the trial.
So in preparation for the trial, we had an arraignment with the Judge Carrie Taylor, and she was very thorough in explaining the situation and what our rights were. 11 of us were pro se, meaning we defended ourselves. 2 people were represented by a local attorney, and we wanted to set it up that way because, he knows a lot more about the courts in Wilmington than we do. But the advantage, and the judge actually told us this, the advantage of being pro se is that you have a lot more leeway. You're not expected to know how everything works and what the rules are and the laws and all that. So we were able to bring in a lot of information. It was very interesting. Our charge was, we had one charge of disorderly conduct, which is a a misdemeanor. And usually in a situation like that, all you can present is a defense trying to prove, no, we didn't sit in the street. No, we didn't block traffic. No, we weren't disorderly. And anything else, like to bring in anything about climate change or, impacts that are already happening or concerns about future generations, would be immediately rolled out of order. So this judge, we had to present some information in advance about what we were going to do. So we said we were going to present some expert witnesses and some reports about climate change and about banks' investments. And she didn't say, no, you can't. So I was still thinking up until we got into court that she was going to tell us when court actually came into session. That's all irrelevant. But she didn't. So we got to testify to all this stuff. We had a different doctor testify very extremely powerfully about, the impacts, already occurring impacts and future impacts of the climate crisis. We had actually two. I was a witness, and I was interviewed by a fellow defendant, and then that happened in another case too. So we were both defendants and lawyers, which was really interesting. But she let us do it. So I testified about Tony and Graffia couldn't come, and they wouldn't allow out of court witnesses. They wouldn't allow people to testify virtually, although they could have. I mean, because we actually used the videos to show some other things. So I testified about, the IPCC, the report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the new one that just came out a few months ago, very disturbing, saying, that human impact is clearly responsible for all the warming that's happened so far, and what's happening to our planet. And then someone else testified, another defendant testified about the report, Banking on Climate Chaos, and showing how Chase was, all the big banks are bad, but Chase is definitely the worst. So we got that into the record. But
the prosecutor kept hammering away that this was none of this was imminent harm. Can you explain
that's right.
that?
Yeah, it was really interesting. His role, the prosecutor was the arresting officer, he was a policeman. So he kept asking everyone who was on the witness stand, including, the doctor who testified, who wasn't at the action. So what could he say? And he kept asking me and the other defendant who took the stand, what imminent harm did you avoid by sitting in the street? And, we kept trying to answer it different ways. And one thing I pointed out was, the day of our action, this heat wave was killing people. And if we didn't raise the issue, raise the volume and raise the awareness, it was going to keep happening. So we finished our testimony, and then the judge, left the courtroom, and we were all waiting outside for about an hour. And I thought, I didn't really think she was going to find us not guilty, but I kept thinking, after everything we presented, how could she not find us not guilty? And it took an hour. So I'm thinking, well, maybe she's going to find us not guilty. So we all filed back in, and she starts reading her statement, and immediately was made clear that she was finding us guilty. Then the interesting thing that happened was she asked the prosecutor, the police officer, his opinion about what the sentence should be. This was not something we could do jail time for. So it was just a question of, doing a fine or possibly community service. So he said he was recommending a $25 fine, which I guess was the minimum once you go to a trial. That would be the minimum, and no court costs. So she imposed the $25 fine and court costs. So it was $97 for each of us. And on the way out, he actually out in the hallway, he talked to two different defendants, and basically said he supported us.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was trying to make it as minimally, painful as possible. It was very interesting. So
I understand that you had closing statements. You were
yes,
allowed
we did.
Would you
yes,
like
we did.
to read part of yours?
Yes, and we're actually going to put them into a little booklet, I think, that we'll probably make available online, because they were pretty great statements. And mine was different from everybody else's, and it's pretty short, so I can just read it.
Sure.
Your Honor, my name is Melinda Tuhus. I've been a journalist for almost 40 years, and I see the world through that lens. So I see that broadcast news networks are notoriously bad at covering the climate crisis. Their neglect of the crisis is on stark display in a new statistic. According to Media Matters for America, morning TV shows spent nearly as much time on Jeff Bezos's space launch on July 20th, 2021, as they did on the climate crisis in all of 2020. The unrelenting climate crises of 2021 have pushed the networks into more coverage, but what is still uncovered is what lies behind the crisis: the financial support of big banks and other financial institutions, as you have heard today. JP Morgan Chase is by far the biggest US funder of fossil fuel projects, according to the 2021 Banking on Climate Chaos report, which we have presented as evidence. Yet few, if any, people know this outside the world of high finance and those of us working furiously to rein in fossil fuel pollution. If more Americans knew, there might be repercussions for banks like Chase and changes to their earth-destroying policies. I took action to raise the alarm about Chase and to call them out as a climate criminal. They are guilty, not I. I urge you to find us not guilty.
Fine statement. Now, you're also, you were arrested in May in Minnesota. Would you have a little time to talk about that?
Yeah, I was part of a group of 7 elders and 4 young people who were staying at one of the camps along Line 3 in northern Minnesota to stop Line 3, which is a tar sands pipeline coming down from northern Alberta, exactly the same as the Keystone XL pipeline that President Biden, killed on his first day in office. It was going across a few miles of Wisconsin and a few miles of North Dakota and all the way across Minnesota, 300 plus miles. And a lot of it was over indigenous treaty territory, the Anishinaabe. So we went out there. There were people from Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we drove out to the camp in early May. And our site, the site of our action was not the pipeline itself, but it was what they call a man camp, which is temporary housing for all the workers, most of whom are out of state, who come to work on the pipeline. And the week we were there was the week to commemorate missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirits, which is what their term for non-binary folks. So five of the elder women were sitting in not rocking chairs, but chaise lounges, like at the beach. So we were sitting there. We said, well, we can't really sit on the ground. We can't really squat. We have this issue and that issue. And so the young people at the camp went out and bought these 5 chairs for us to sit in, which was sweet. So we were the 3 in the middle were locked down with to lock boxes where you stick your arm in, and you each stick your arm in and hook to a pin in the middle, and then all of us were wrapped in like super heavy gauge chain and locked around with padlocks, each of us. So we were sitting right in front of the fence, with the entrance. And then 3 other people were in front of us, lying on the ground, locked also into these big barrels, 2 barrels. So there was one in the middle locked to both, 2 barrels, and then one on each end. And then there was another entrance, and 3 other people were locked down in a similar manner in a big concrete thing. So that's what we did. We got there early in the morning, and so the police came, lots and lots of police. I mean, there were so many, there were like a dozen police cars there. So long story short, they got us out of there fairly quickly, and took us off to jail where we spent the night. The other 2 groups, it took them hours, to get through all the cement. It was a long, tedious process. So we spent the night in jail. We were arraigned the next morning. We got released on, no bail. And we had several court dates over the summer, and we were divided into 2 groups. We were trying to unite.
Well, let me stop you for a second. What's it like to spend a night in jail? I think most of our viewers have not done that.
So, well, this was interesting. I've been in different jails. This is the only time I've actually spent the night in jail. Uh-huh. And I'm glad it was that jail because of COVID, we were basically in solitary. We were all in our own cells, and I was dreading it. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be so bored. What am I going to do? So we were all issued, orange jail clothing, and we all got ushered to our own cells. And but before we got settled in there, they said you can go to the library and get a book. They had a jail library. So I went to the jail library. We all went to the library, and we all got books. And I got a novel by a guy who had been an NPR reporter in Minnesota for 20 years. And then he wrote this novel, and it was pretty interesting. I didn't get to finish it, so maybe I'll finish it later. But anyway, it kept me very, occupied. There also, I don't know, I think this was true in all the cells. In my cell, I had a narrow window, and I could look out onto this little pocket park, which made a huge difference to me, that I didn't feel like I was just, I would have gotten claustrophobic in this little cell with no window, but so it was, it was
tolerable.
Very, yeah. I mean, when we were arrested in Wilmington, fortunately, we were only there for 2 hours, and it was very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It was just a metal bunk bed, and there was nothing, and there was a toilet there, and that's it, and very tiny, and no mattress. If we'd spent the night, I don't know if they would have had a mattress, but that was all there was there.
All right, so I interrupted you. So you were saying, so the next morning in Minnesota.
Oh, so we were arraigned and we were released, and we.
What's the charge? What charge?
Oh, there were 3 charges. They were sort of, disorderly trespassing, and a third one I can't remember. Actually, they were all misdemeanors.
Yeah.
So we were greeted by our wonderful friends from the camp when we got out. It's where the GNU Collective was carrying out its nonviolent direct actions from. And then, so we did a debrief, went back to camp. But then the other thing that was really incredible to me was after that, excuse me, at dusk, we drove the elders, not the young people from the camp, but the elders who had come from afar, drove about an hour to the headwaters of the Mississippi River, which is in a state park it's called Itasca State Park. Lake Itasca is right there, and then the river flows out from it. And it was an incredible experience to be there. We were the only ones there. I still get goosebumps every time I talk about this. You could cross the river on 6 little stepping stones. That was it. That was the mighty Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And the reason I get goosebumps partly is because not just that I saw it there and I experienced it and I crossed the stepping stones, but within a couple of miles, we also passed, preparations for drilling under the river, which hadn't happened yet when we were there in May, and then happened, later over the summer. And there were all these signs posted, there were these wooden gangplanks or whatever that were spread out over the wetlands and crossing the river. And there was a sign that said, wetlands. I forgot the exact wording on it, but it was, you know, caution wetlands or something like that. It's like, okay, well, then why are you drilling here? It was disgusting. And, you know, they finished the drilling and they finished the pipeline. And
is line 3 in operation now?
well, that is the question. I am not sure. After it was, for a while after it was finished, the oil was not flowing. And I'm honestly not sure if it is. I would imagine it would be by now, and I have to check on that. But we finally had, you know, our day in court about a month ago, and we had some wonderful pro bono lawyers, and my group settled for, there were actually a couple of options. They were really accommodating. But the deal that I took was they dropped one charge and we got fined for the other two, and we weren't supposed to, you know, we had to sort of behave for a month or so. So I'm done. I'm completely done with that.
So you have nothing legal hanging over you at this.
That is correct. I better
on to the next event. I want to thank you so much for speaking with me.
Yeah, it's nice to be here, Stan. Thanks for having me.